Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly through the moonlit streets of Shiraz, where the air smells faintly of rosewater and even the cobblestones seem to hum with secrets. You find yourself standing before an ancient brass gate, its handles shaped like fig leaves and slightly warm to the touch, as though the door has recently sighed. The scent in the air shifts, saffron maybe, or cardamom. It's hard to tell. The wind here doesn't blow, it curates. You glance over your shoulder one last time. The street behind you is empty, not quiet, empty. The kind of silence that dares you to question whether it was ever populated to begin with. You turn back to the gate. There's no knocker, no bell, just a soft inscription in Persian. Enter only if your dreams misbehave. You probably won't survive this, of course, not because of any danger, but because this is the kind of place where time folds like pastry dough and most people forget how to leave. But hey, if you're going to get stuck somewhere, it might as well smell like paradise and be stocked with other people's dreams. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I'm curious. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push open the gate. There's no creak, no groan, just the sound of air changing its mind. Beyond it, a courtyard unfurls like a breath being released. Vines hang lazily from sandstone walls. Small clay lanterns line the path, each flickering with a blue flame so still it looks painted. The path curves to the left, where a stone archway yawns open. You're not entirely sure how you know it's the library. It just is. A boy walks past you barefoot, carrying a tray stacked with small glass vials sealed in wax. He nods at you without stopping. You think he might be 10 years old, or maybe 100. In this place, age is a suggestion. At the threshold, you pause. Something inside you tightens, not in fear, but in nostalgia. It's the kind of tug you feel when you hear a lullaby you didn't know you remembered. A smell wafts out, faint, elusive, like pine needles after rain. You're already cataloging it, just like they do in here. Inside, the library is darker than you expect, but not in an ominous way. The walls glow softly, as if they're made of crushed pearls. The ceiling is high and domed, but there are no chandeliers, just paper lanterns suspended in silence. There are no visible books, no card catalogs, just rows upon rows of carved wooden drawers, each labeled in Persian script with what appears to be a smell. You lean in and see one marked, charred fig leaf. Another reads, snow on terracotta. There's even one labeled simply, grandmother's coat. And then, from behind a red velvet curtain, he appears, the librarian. He's shorter than you expected. Older, too. His robe is the color of dried apricots, and his beard is neatly combed into a point, like the nib of a fountain pen. He doesn't greet you, not at first. He just studies your face for a long moment, as though he's trying to remember where he filed you. You smell like unfinished stories, he says at last. You try to respond, but your voice stays politely seated somewhere in your throat. No matter, he shrugs, turning on his heel. Follow me. You do. His pace is unhurried, like someone who's had centuries to arrive at conclusions. As you walk, the drawers blur past you, wet citrus peel, sandalwood under snowfall, ink soaked in regret. You catch glimpses of others wandering the stacks. No one speaks. One girl is holding a small corked bottle and weeping quietly, though she looks strangely happy about it. Most libraries file by topic, the librarian says over his shoulder. Some by title, some even by color. But here, he taps the air and the hallway exhales the scent of roasted almond skin. Here, we file by the smell left behind in the mind. You wonder if he's joking, but he continues without pause. Dreams fade quickly. It's not their fault. The conscious brain is a jealous little prince. So we catch the scent instead. That stays longer. It's how you remember your childhood home, your first heartbreak, your nightmares, always through scent. He stops abruptly. You nearly crash into him. He turns, fixes you with that same searching gaze. You're here to read, yes, or to file. Read, you manage to whisper. Good. Filing is for the melancholy. He leads you to a side corridor you hadn't noticed before. It slopes downward slightly, and the walls grow closer, like they're listening in. I suppose, he says almost to himself, it's fitting you came on a Tuesday. That's when the peacock dreams bloom. You don't ask. He gestures toward a wide marble pedestal with a velvet cushion atop it. On the cushion lies a single scroll, wrapped in blue silk and sealed with a dab of yellow wax. The scent is unmistakable. Saffron, the same smell that greeted you at the gate. You may begin, he says, and fades backward into the corridor like steam dissolving into warm air. You reach out. The silk feels like rain on your fingertips. The wax crumbles under your thumb. You don't open the scroll just yet. You pause, letting the saffron seep into your thoughts. Somewhere in the depths of the library, a bell chimes once. It smells like jasmine. You breathe in, and the dream begins. You unfold the scroll slowly, careful not to let the edges curl too tightly. The parchment is warm, somehow, like it remembers being held. The saffron scent thickens, folding around your thoughts like a warm scarf. As your eyes trace the ancient calligraphy, the words don't just appear, they happen to you. It begins in a garden. The colors are wrong, vivid to the point of arrogance. Turquoise leaves, golden shadows, and pebbles the color of crushed coral. A girl in a white linen dress skips across a mosaic path. She has no name, or maybe too many. Her feet make no sound. Her laughter is muffled, as though it's been politely edited by a dream censor. She's not alone. A peacock struts behind her, feathers fanned not in pride, but in consultation, like he's offering her a list of options. He speaks in a voice that sounds like bells over wet glass, and he is very concerned about geography. You must not cross the jasmine wall, he insists, fluttering. The frogs there hold grudges. The girl ignores him. She always does. You blink. The scroll shivers slightly, releasing a new note, dried lemon rind and beeswax. The story shifts. Historians still argue whether dreams like these come from real people or are simply composites, 1,000 subconscious sketches stitched into one. Some believe this girl was based on a real merchant's daughter from Kazvin. Others say she's entirely fictional, a projection from a scribe who never left the library, but she feels real. You can feel her heartbeat syncing with yours as the scent continues to unravel. The garden bends, literally. The trees curve away from you as if bowing or avoiding eye contact. The girl reaches a sundial where time runs in reverse. Shadows chase the sun. The peacock hops onto the base of the dial and sighs. This is where he used to wait, the peacock says, his voice softening. The boy with the ink fingers. The scroll's next scent is unmistakable. Iron gall ink, the kind used by ancient Persian scribes. It's sharp, metallic, and oddly nostalgic. The girl sits cross-legged beside the sundial. She digs into the soil and unearths a tiny vial, stoppered and sealed with lilac wax. She hands it to the peacock. I buried this dream 100 years ago, she says. The peacock tilts his head. You've never been here before. She smiles. Exactly. The narrative folds like silk in a breeze. You can't tell what's dream and what's memory. That's the danger, the librarian had warned. Fragrance doesn't just record the moment, it blurs it. You begin to smell sandalwood again. But this time it's been toasted, like someone left it too close to a flame. The garden darkens. The sky above shimmers like fish scales, then cracks. Just a hairline fracture, enough to let something else leak through. You hear music now. A flute, played imperfectly. The notes trip over themselves like half-formed thoughts. The girl rises. She walks through an arch made entirely of folded letters. Each letter smells different. Rose ink from Shiraz, charcoal scribbles from Samarkand. Pomegranate juice used by a lovesick student in Tabriz. The girl steps past them all and into a grove of sleeping foxes. They don't stir. Not even when she kneels beside the largest one and whispers, "Tell me where I filed the memory of him." The fox answers in a voice so deep it feels like standing beside a waterfall. "You didn't. You left it unscented." That explains it. Unscented memories don't last. They fade first. The parchment now smells faintly of dust and lost time. Your fingers itch. You don't want the scroll to end, but it's wrapping itself tighter, drawing to a close. The peacock reappears, perched on a tree that grows sideways. "She'll forget this," he says to you directly. "Tomorrow morning. Maybe sooner." You nod. That's how dreams work. But the peacock narrows his eyes. "You won't, though. You're not the dreamer this time." You shiver. That line, was it meant for you? The parchment trembles, then settles. The final sentence reads, "And beneath the saffron sun she let go of the name she'd carried for too long." The scent dissipates. You're back in the reading chamber. The scroll is still warm. Your hands smell of spice and ink. And across the room the librarian is watching you. He tilts his head and asks, "Did it remember you?" You try to speak. Instead, a sigh escapes you. He nods like that's answer enough. Then he gestures toward a different corridor, narrow, arched, and dimly lit. "This way," he says. "Time to learn how dreams really work." The corridor narrows as you follow him, the ceiling dipping low enough to make you stoop. The walls are lined with deep shelves, each holding squat ceramic jars sealed in wax and twine. No labels, no markings, only color-coded threads wrapped around the lids: turquoise, saffron, mulberry, storm cloud gray. The air here is dense, like walking through wool soaked in perfume. "These are what remain when dreams forget themselves," the librarian explains, gesturing to the jars. "They lose their shape but not their scent." He taps one gently. The wax holds, but a wisp of something escapes. A quick curl of air that smells unmistakably like roasted chestnuts and childhood guilt. You step back instinctively. He notices. "It's always the nostalgic ones that hit hardest," he mutters, almost fondly. "People think they forget their dreams because they're not important. But really, it's because the brain resents being reminded of what it can't hold on to." You reach for a jar marked with crimson twine. "Not that one," he says quickly. "That's a war dream. It never ends, not even in storage." You tuck your hand behind your back like a school child. The corridor opens suddenly into a round chamber. At its center is a low marble basin filled with a pale golden liquid that shimmers like sunlight caught in honey. Thin ribbons of steam rise from it in delicate spirals. You lean in. The scent hits you before your reflection does. Lavender, burnt sugar, old books that haven't been touched in years. There's a moment, just one, where the smell is so familiar, so impossibly personal, that you feel your knees buckle. He places a hand on your shoulder. It's lighter than expected, like he's afraid to leave fingerprints. "This," he says softly, "is what we call the theory of fragrant memory. Not mine, of course. First proposed by a spice merchant named Naim al-Tustari, 12th century. He believed that scent wasn't just memory's trigger. It was memory, in molecular disguise." You nod, though your senses are swimming. Historians still argue whether al-Tustari was truly the first to link olfaction with cognition, or whether he simply translated the ideas of older Indian and Chinese texts. Either way, his scrolls never survived, just the footnotes. And according to this librarian, this basin— "Here," he says, handing you a slip of paper. "Close your eyes, breathe, and don't read it until after." You obey. The steam curls around you again. This time it smells like petrichor, that earthy aroma after rain, mingled with something floral, perhaps hyacinth. A thread of citrus flickers past your nose. The scent shifts every few seconds, like pages being turned too quickly to follow. You open your eyes. Now you read the slip. "The time you laughed so hard you forgot what started it." You gasp, because that exact moment flashes in your mind. Your hands on your knees, your voice cracking with laughter, someone beside you laughing even harder, and no one remembering the joke. It doesn't make sense. That memory was buried so deep you'd filed it away under inexplicable joy, but scent had held onto it, like a bookmark. People think we dream in images, the librarian murmurs beside you. But we don't. Not first. First, we dream in smells. The scent of the room where you broke your heart, the incense your grandmother used on Thursdays, even the ghost of perfume on a coat you borrowed once and never returned. He takes the paper back and slips it into the basin. It dissolves instantly with a sigh. And now you understand, he says. You do, sort of. It's not a library in the traditional sense. It's a preservation chamber for evaporating truths. The dreams stored here don't last forever, but as long as they're scented, preserved, they can be revisited, reread, refelt. The librarian gestures for you to follow once more. You pass under an archway shaped like a blooming iris and emerge into a room so wide it echoes. The floor is polished obsidian. The shelves here spiral upward, climbing into darkness like coiled staircases. Every drawer is backlit with soft gold, and some of them twitch, ever so slightly, as if breathing. This, he says, is the heart. You understand without asking. This is where the dreams are actively sorted, the central archive, and though it looks still, the scent trails crisscross the air like unseen roads. An assistant passes silently on a wheeled ladder, uncorking a vial and sniffing it before nodding and sliding it into a drawer labeled olive smoke during an eclipse. Is it hard, you ask, to know what all these mean? The librarian smiles for the first time. Infinitely, it's impossible. That's why I'm still here. You're about to ask what happens when he leaves, but the thought vanishes as your eye catches something strange. A drawer. It's open, slightly ajar, and from it, a smell you know, and shouldn't. Something sharp, warm, and dizzyingly specific. It smells like your old apartment at 2 a.m. that night you couldn't sleep and stood at the window watching distant headlights flicker across snow. You haven't thought of that moment in years, not since. You take a step toward it. The librarian places a hand on your chest. Not yet, he says. You haven't earned that dream. His voice is kind but final. He leads you away. You don't look back, but you still smell the snow. The hallway beyond the central archive feels cooler, both in air and in mood. Gone are the inviting steam curls and sunlit vapors. Here, the lighting softens to a barely there glow, and the walls are carved with what seem at first like patterns, until you realize they're names. Not written, not inscribed, carved, some in flowing Persian script, others in fractured shapes like they were etched in panic, names or maybe fragments of them, long lost. These, says the librarian, are the ones who tried to bottle someone else's dreams. You glance at him. Why would anyone do that? He shrugs, his sandals whispering across the stone floor. For the same reason anyone borrows something they shouldn't. They think they'll give it back. He stops in front of a recessed alcove. Inside, under glass, is a single bulbous bottle, its stopper fused with pitch. The scent inside pulses faintly, and your nose picks up something almost like ocean water, with notes of burnt cedar and lavender gone slightly sour. The smell itself is exhausted, as though it has been breathing for too long. This was a failed love, he says simply. Unfiled, unreciprocated, over-preserved. You nod slowly. It's oddly comforting to know that even dreams can sour when bottled wrong. Historians still argue whether ancient Persian dream archivists used physical tools to extract scent from the subconscious, or whether the art was more meditative, an internal excavation. Some claim a specific herb, gol-ikas, once used in Zoroastrian rituals, enhanced olfactory memory retrieval. Others say it was merely the placebo of intention. The librarian seems to believe both are true. Tools help, he says, as if reading your mind. But will matters more? If you don't want to remember, the scent won't hold. You follow him through a narrow door curtained with hanging strands of dried marigold and saffron threads. They tickle your face as you pass, releasing little bursts of scent, sunlight, turmeric, something like wet paper. It smells like school notebooks left in the sun. Beyond, a new chamber awaits, the scriptorium. Here, the dreams are transcribed, not with ink, but with resin. Thin sheets of bark-like paper hang from the ceiling on twine, each one glistening faintly where the resin has dried in delicate script. The whole room smells of pine sap and bergamot. One of the scribes, her face nearly hidden behind coils of silver-dyed fabric, waves you over. "Choose," she says softly, motioning to the hanging scrolls. "Choose the one that remembers you." You hesitate. It feels silly. How could a dream remember you? But then again, you're here, aren't you? You wander between the swaying sheets, sniffing delicately, breathing shallowly, trying not to disrupt the delicate balance of fragrance. There are smells of citrus groves and black tea, of freshly struck matches and damp stone walls. One smells like the inside of a violin case, another like heartbreak on a warm train platform. Then you find it. You don't recognize the scent at first. It's a strange combination: chamomile, engine oil, and the metallic sting of a nosebleed. But it floods your chest like recognition, and your knees go weak. You read the dream. It begins in a laundromat you've never seen, but feel certain you once visited. A woman is folding towels with aggressive precision. Outside, it's snowing, but inside it smells like sunburn and static electricity. A boy enters. He drops a coin into the wrong machine. It clanks and refuses him. He curses quietly. And then he looks up and says your name. The dream stops there. Cut off, unfinished. But it's enough. The scribe takes the scroll from you and nods. She dabs a final drop of resin where your thumbprint touched the edge. The sheet shivers, then dries. "It's filed," she says. "For what?" you ask. She only tilts her head. "For when you're ready to smell it again." You step back, the chamber spinning slightly. The librarian is already waiting by the next doorway, hands folded, smile faint. "Well?" he asks. You open your mouth, then close it. There's no word for the feeling, not exactly. Nostalgia, perhaps, but deeper. Like remembering something you never actually lived, but deeply missed all the same. "It smelled like home," you say at last. He nods. "That's the cruelest kind," he replies. "The ones that smell like belonging." As you follow him again, the door shuts behind you with a sigh. Of air, or perhaps of memory. It's hard to tell the difference here. Another hall. This one is narrow and sloping downward. The light flickers like gas lamps, though no flames are visible. The scent here is different, less curated, earthier, less perfume, more soil. You're heading into older archives. "Most people don't come this far," he murmurs, almost to himself. "They get what they need in the warm rooms. But you're still curious." You don't answer. You're not sure if you're being praised or warned. Down here, the scent changes with every breath. Dusty oranges, dried leather, the distinct smell of worry. You swear you smell the inside of your childhood friend's backpack, the one she always left unzipped, leaking secrets and sour candy. The librarian stops at a sealed wooden door. It has no handle, only a carved impression. He places his palm against it. The scent of sandalwood floods the air again, but aged, cracked, darker now. "Here," he says quietly, "is where we keep the dreams that fought to be forgotten." And then the door opens. You hesitate at the threshold. The air beyond the door is still but not empty. It is expectant, like the breath before a secret is spoken. The scent is immediately overwhelming, rich and low and ancient. Not sweet, not floral, not herbal. This is the scent of moss-covered stone, of candle wax left to melt in old cathedrals, of ink dried on skin. The librarian steps through without pause. You follow, though your chest tightens as you do. The room is round and vast, its ceiling lost in darkness. There are no shelves here, no scrolls, no fluttering ribbons of scent suspended in glass. Instead, the walls are carved directly into the mountain, forming hundreds of niches, each the size of a skull. Inside each is a single folded square of dark cloth, charcoal gray, some edged in crimson, others in gold. These are not labeled. These, the librarian says, are unclaimed. You blink. "You mean forgotten?" "No," he replies. "Worse, These are the dreams people wanted to remember but chose not to. That stops you. You step closer to one of the niches, your hand instinctively reaching out. Careful, he warns, gently but firmly. You're not ready to touch that one. The smell from this cloth is barely perceptible, but your brain fills in the rest. Something metallic, something like burnt toast, a school hallway, that ache in your stomach when you know you've said the wrong thing and can't take it back. It's uncanny. Your memory reacts even when your logic resists. Historians still argue whether this part of the library ever truly existed, or if it was a metaphor created by 14th century poet Jalal Bahrami in his unfinished work, The Archive of Tears. Some scholars claim he built a physical scent chamber in the caves of Qom, where mourners could go to relive specific regrets. Others believe it was all allegory, a symbolic journey through emotion, not stone. But you're here now, and it's very real. The librarian steps toward one of the niches and gently lifts the cloth from within. The scent released is faint, elusive, like the breath of someone you miss. It smells like faded pages and mint tea and the cool skin of someone who never said goodbye properly. He doesn't speak. He just holds the cloth for a moment, then folds it back, carefully, reverently. You finally ask, "Whose was that?" He doesn't answer for a long time. Then, "Mine." And that somehow silences every question in your mind. You continue through the chamber, walking slowly, trying not to disturb the cloths. Each one releases the barest breath of scent as you pass. Some make your throat tighten, others bring goosebumps. One, inexplicably, smells like chalk dust and violins, and you suddenly want to cry for a person you've never met. These are where people store the things that broke them, the librarian explains, but also the things they feared would break them if they remembered. You nod, though your breath is shaky. Can they be reclaimed? You ask. He tilts his head. Only if you're ready to relive the dream, entirely, and not just the parts that smell sweet. You pass a niche with cloth edged in deep midnight blue. The scent leaks out before you get close. Jasmine, yes, but undercut with the sharp sting of ammonia and ink. You flinch. Jealousy, he says simply. Unspoken, unacted upon, but rotted all the same. Another, the smell of lemons and gunpowder. A promise broken mid-sentence. You begin to understand that scent is not just a record, it's a confrontation, a challenge. These aren't perfumes, they're confessions, and some aren't yours. That's when you notice the furthest wall, where the niches are deeper, darker, set apart. These cloths are wrapped tighter, heavier, almost armored in texture. Their scents are harder to place. Some of them feel cold, like the air in a room where something terrible is about to be said. Others reek of desperation, or hope curdled into resentment. These, the librarian says, are borrowed burdens, dreams people took on for others, griefs that weren't theirs to carry, but they carried them anyway. You stop walking, because something in the air has changed. There's a new scent, familiar, utterly personal, like your mother's sweater the last time you saw her, like the hallway outside your childhood bedroom at 2 a.m., like hospital blankets and wildflowers growing in places they shouldn't. You follow it, dazed, and there it is, a niche near the floor, easily overlooked. Its cloth is simple, unadorned, no colored stitching, no visible ornament, just a threadbare square of cotton folded once, cleanly. You crouch, you breathe it in. It smells like a memory you were sure you'd made up. The time you left a note in a stranger's library book. The time you told a lie so small but it echoed for years. The time you let someone cry into your shirt and said nothing because the silence was safer. You don't touch it. Not yet. The librarian stands behind you, silent. You turn to him. Is this mine? He nods. Then why was it down here? Because, he says, you weren't ready to forgive yourself. The words fall heavy in the air. They smell like rosemary and ash and late spring rain. You rise slowly. The scent still clings to you. What now? You whisper. He offers you his arm again. Now, we go somewhere warmer. As you walk out, past the carved names and silent cloths, you understand something new. Scent is not just a way back. It's a mirror. A record of what the heart isn't brave enough to say aloud. And now that you've smelled this, you can never unremember it. The return to warmth is slow and deliberate, like a morning sun climbing the horizon after a long night. The hallway inclines gently upward, and with each step, the air thickens with sweeter fragrances, less sorrowful, more curious. Saffron, cardamom, crushed apricot pits, a hint of hot sand after a summer storm. You feel it before you see it. The room ahead hums with life. Not noise exactly, but presence. The scent of bodies, of conversation, of half-remembered laughter still clinging to the walls. This is the communal wing, the librarian says, where dreams blur together. You raise a brow. Communal? He smiles. Not all dreams belong entirely to one person. Some are cross-pollinated. You step through the wide archway and pause. The room is circular, open, filled with low cushions and brass basins. Narrow trays carry small earthen pots arranged in loose spirals. Above you, copper lanterns swing slightly, stirring the air just enough to waft the aromas from the pots across the room. A woman with henna-stained hands kneels near one spiral. She lifts a pot, inhales, and gently passes it to the person beside her. They do the same. No words, just breath, scent, memory. The librarian lowers his voice. This is where shared dreams are tested for truth. You frown. Truth? In dreams, memories sometimes overlap, especially between people with strong bonds, lovers, siblings, old friends. It's not uncommon for both to claim the same scent, so we bring them here, to compare. He leads you to a basin. Within it, thin curls of white smoke rise from a half-melted resin. You catch the scent and it takes you by surprise. It smells like the time you walked barefoot on the roof of your childhood home during a thunderstorm. Utterly convinced you could hear the stars humming, you shake your head slowly. But that was a dream, I think. The librarian chuckles softly. You're catching on. This room feels alive in a different way than the others. Less reverent, more exploratory. Like a university filled with misfits who still believe in magic. Historians still debate whether there truly existed in the Sasanian Empire a guild of smell weavers who trained in collective olfactory memory. Some records, particularly from the physician-philosopher Borzuya, suggest the use of dream incense to test congruent memories in groups. Others dismiss the references as poetic metaphor for spiritual unity. Either way, the tradition has endured in secret. Through scent, a pair of twin brothers across the room are silently passing a pot back and forth. With each inhale, their expressions shift. Nostalgia, pain, sudden laughter. One wipes away tears, the other simply places a hand on his shoulder. You glance at the librarian. How do they know they're remembering the same thing? They don't, he says. Not exactly, but when two people react to the same scent with matching silence, that's usually enough. He gestures for you to try. You're hesitant but curious. You reach for a small black pot near your basin. The lid is warm and your fingers tingle slightly as you remove it. The scent inside is sharp, pine resin, burnt orange peel, and the strange sweetness of pipe tobacco. Your eyes close, and you're in a room with velvet curtains and a man with ink on his hands, handing you a letter you're not supposed to read. You never met this man. You never lived in that room. But you remember it. You open your eyes and pass the pot to the librarian. He breathes in, then exhales, smiling faintly. Ah, that one again. You blink. Again? That dream shows up often, he explains. Always with the ink and the letter. Sometimes the recipient is a woman, sometimes a child, sometimes a ghost. But the scent is always the same. You consider this. So it's a communal memory? He nods. A shared echo. We call them murmurs. Murmurs. It fits. You sit for a while, just watching others. Each person receives the memory differently. Some hold their breath too long, trying to trap the dream before it fades. Others laugh, or cry, or simply nod, as though greeting an old friend. Eventually, the librarian touches your shoulder. "There's one more place," he says softly, "but it's invitation only." You rise and follow. Through a narrow arch, lit only by the reflection of brass, you enter a hallway where the scent is subtle and shifting. It smells different with every breath. Cinnamon, chalk, cold metal, ink and honey and anise. It's like walking through someone else's thoughts. "Where are we going?" you ask. He doesn't answer immediately. Then, "To the room of scribes." You frown. "Haven't we seen the scribes already?" He smiles. "Those were for transcription. These are for invention." The hallway opens into a small chamber lined with polished black wood. A single long table dominates the space, and around it sit 7 figures in robes the color of bruised grapes. Each has a mask of hammered silver covering their eyes and mouth. Each one holds a stylus. Before them on the table are slabs of clay. They are writing. You whisper, "They're making new dreams?" The librarian nods. Dreams not yet dreamt. Scented memories for futures that don't exist yet, but might. You blink. Why? He looks at you. "Because sometimes," he says, "we need to hope for something we can't imagine yet. These are the seeds." You approach one of the scribes. She tilts her head toward you and offers a small vial, stoppered, unlabeled. You take it. The librarian says, "Don't open it here." You nod. You understand. This one is meant for another time. As you leave the chamber, the weight of the vial sits in your pocket, warm and light all at once. You don't know what it holds, but the scent already lingers faintly on your fingers. Something like possibility. The hallway that leads away from the scribe's chamber feels quieter. Not empty exactly, but softened, like sound itself has grown tired and curled up in the corners for a nap. You walk beside the librarian in silence, your hand unconsciously brushing the tiny vial in your pocket. Whatever scent waits inside it is dormant now, but it tingles against your thigh like a secret you're not quite ready to hear. He stops at a set of low, rounded doors carved from olive wood. "These are the echo archives," he says, "where dreams return after being lived." You give him a look. "Dreams come back?" "Some do," he says, tapping the door gently. "Not all dreams are one-way journeys. Some are boomerangs. Some are stubborn. Some," he shrugs, "have a flair for the dramatic." The doors open with a hush of scented air. You step into a room like none before. There are no shelves here. No scrolls, no pots, no cloths. Just fog. Cool silver fog that dances at ankle height and carries scents in waves. Subtle, moving, evolving. Like standing in a memory that hasn't decided what emotion to settle on. You step in. The fog parts where you walk. Your footsteps stir stories into the air. One step brings the sharp, clean scent of mint crushed under a boot heel. Another brings molasses and sea salt, then wet earth and hot iron, then library glue and something like old coins. "These are fragments," the librarian murmurs behind you. "Shattered memories. Echoes of dreams too slippery to pin down. They don't have owners anymore. Or rather, they have too many." Historians still argue whether the echo archives were a literal place or a metaphor for collective unconsciousness. Ancient Persian mystic scribes wrote of air that remembers, and there are clay records of a wind temple in northern Yazd where pilgrims walked barefoot through scented mist to shed forgotten griefs. This fog feels like that, sentient and slightly amused at your confusion. You crouch, letting the vapor drift up towards your face. The scent that emerges is light, wistful, sandalwood and river stones and marzipan with something under it, faint regret. You exhale. Why do they return here? The librarian joins you. Because some dreams resist endings. They echo in people's minds across generations. Their scents get muddled, layered with centuries of retelling. What you're smelling isn't one person's dream. It's everyone's attempt to explain it. He pauses. And sometimes a dream waits here until the right person passes by. You stand. Like Cinderella's slipper but for the nose? Exactly, he grins. If Cinderella had trauma and unresolved identity issues. You chuckle. The sound is quickly swallowed by the fog. As you walk, something familiar wafts up, warm sugar, black tea, and the gluey tang of kindergarten nap mats. You stop dead. This is yours, your memory, not recent, not important, just yours. You look at the librarian. How did it get here? He looks at you with something between pity and amusement. Because you forgot it. I don't forget things. He raises an eyebrow. You kneel again, breathing it in. The details return slowly. A lost lunchbox, a pair of socks with frogs on them, someone humming in the background. You feel a strange tug at your chest, like being hugged by someone whose name you can't quite recall. You whisper, I didn't know I missed this. The librarian says nothing. There are no rules in this room. You wander as long as you like, each puff of fog offering a different half-dream. A lover whose face is always blurred, a train you never boarded, a letter that never got mailed. Some are bittersweet, some are nonsense. One puff smells like hot peaches and printer toner and makes you laugh out loud. Another like lemon rinds and broken pencils, and suddenly your throat tightens for no reason you can explain. These are the dreams that didn't stay where they were supposed to. The ones that drifted off course. Maybe they were too light to weigh down or too strange to make sense. You ask, can they be claimed again? The librarian hesitates. Yes, but only if you're willing to rewrite their ending. You arch a brow. Rewrite. I thought dreams weren't supposed to be changed. They aren't, he says. But echoes don't play by the same rules. They've already been lost once. What harm is there in letting them evolve? You kneel before one particularly stubborn wisp of fog. It curls like a cat, then releases a slow bloom of ozone and ginger and wet cotton. The scent hits hard. It's a memory of running through the rain, not running from anything, just running because you were 12 and the sky looked like a dare. You smile. The librarian leans close. If you breathe it in deeply, he whispers, you can carry it out. You inhale. The fog curls around your face, then vanishes into your lungs. The scent floods your head, leaving behind a feeling, not a picture, not a fact, just a soft, persistent warmth. It doesn't fade. You close your eyes. When you open them, the fog has parted. A path now leads forward, lit by nothing you can see but glowing all the same. The librarian gestures ahead. The next room is more complicated. You glance at him. More than dream fog and echo vapor? He just shrugs. It has furniture. That tends to make things messy. You grin despite yourself, and you walk toward the next dream. The transition from fog to form is subtle, like slipping from a half-remembered song into the memory of a room you once loved. The air thickens, then settles. The scents grow heavier, more deliberate. Walnut wood, a hint of lemon oil, dust warmed by lamplight. You step through a beaded curtain that clatters softly behind you and into a parlor. Yes, a parlor, not a chamber or a gallery or a wing of a dream laboratory. A modest, lived-in, wonderfully mismatched Persian parlor, a tasseled divan sagging in the middle. Shelves stuffed with scrolls, spices, and something that looks suspiciously like a taxidermied duck wearing a monocle. The walls are draped in fabric patterned with curling vines, and every corner is cluttered with objects that radiate the emotional weight of keepsake. You glance at the librarian, who is already pouring 2 tiny cups of tea from a glass kettle resting on an oil warmer. The tea smells like cinnamon, dried apples, and the kind of honesty that only comes after midnight. This is the dreamer's lounge, he says, handing you a cup. Where memory becomes intention. You raise your eyebrows. That sounds like a very gentle way to say, people lie to themselves in here. He grins. Of course they do. But with style. You sip. It's like drinking the first full breath after a long cry. The librarian leans against the divan's arm. This room is for reconciling, he says. Sometimes the dream someone brings in doesn't match the life they've lived. It causes friction. So we give them a place to rearrange. You frown, puzzled. Rearrange the dream? No, he says. rearrange themselves. You set your cup down carefully. This sounds a lot like editing reality. Oh, it is, he says, amused, but only within the limits of the story. There's a thick book open on a nearby table. Its pages are blank, but when you move closer, you can faintly see your own handwriting forming line by line, except it's not anything you remember writing. The dream was a forest of keys, each one rusted, each one fitting a lock she never tried. Your voice drifts off. These are dream narratives, the librarian explains. Autobiographies, but only of the you that exists inside your sleep. You might not recognize the phrasing. It's how you sound when no one's awake to listen. You sit down slowly. The divan lets out a suspicious wheeze of springs. Historians continue to dispute whether Persian dream mapping ever included what they called the editing room, a ritual space in certain ancient ziggurats where dreamers recited alternate versions of their lives in hopes of influencing their futures. Some call it early proto-psychotherapy. Others believe it was a form of private poetry, intended for no one's ears but the dreamer's. You flip another page. This one reads, "He never made the choice, not really. He just wandered until someone else's story needed his outline." You whisper, "That's not mine." "Isn't it?" the librarian says quietly. You press your hand to the page. The ink disappears like smoke. Another scent wafts up, cedarwood, myrrh, and that strange hollow sweetness of worn leather. It smells like waiting for a letter that never came. You sink into the couch. Suddenly you see a version of yourself, clearer than a dream, less sharp than memory. This version is sitting in a cafe in a city that doesn't exist, writing postcards to people they've never met. Every time a card is finished, it disappears into the steam of their coffee. You want to ask who they're writing to, but the librarian shakes his head. "No questions here," he says, "only acknowledgments." You lean back. The ceiling is painted with stars, not symbolic ones, actual constellations from the night sky above Persepolis on the spring equinox, 1263 BCE. You recognize the unfamiliar pattern from an old museum exhibit you once passed by without reading. "That's real?" you murmur. The librarian nods. The dream version of real. Sometimes the stars remember better than we do. Across the room, a record player begins to hum. It's not playing music exactly, it's playing a voice. Yours, reciting something. "If I forgive myself before the dream ends, maybe I won't need to keep dreaming it." You go very still. The librarian watches you, not unkindly. That's the most common sentence we hear in here. You sip your tea again. It's cooler now, tasting of almond and the silence between apologies. "What happens if someone rewrites too much?" you ask. He shrugs. "Then they forget who they were. But sometimes that's the only way to find who they need to be." A wind passes through the room. No source, no sound, just the slight shifting of curtains and the faint scent of cloves and paper ash. You feel the air grow heavier again, the atmosphere settling. The warmth of the parlor, the familiarity, it begins to dissolve, not in fear or sadness, but in readiness. The librarian stands and walks to a tall mirror at the back of the room, except it's not a mirror. Or rather, it's not reflecting you. It's reflecting the version of you from the cafe, the one writing postcards to no one. "Time to decide," the librarian says. You stand, the vial in your pocket warming once more. He presses a fingertip to the edge of the mirror. A ripple shudders across its surface like wind on water. You move toward it, but just before you pass through, you glance back at the parlor, the tasseled couch, the book, the record player that now whispers, "No dream is permanent, but all of them matter." You step into the reflection. It smells like everything you've ever nearly remembered. You don't so much step through the mirror as dissolve into it. One heartbeat you're anchored in a parlor of tasseled pillows and warm tea. The next you're suspended in something, less architectural, darkness, but not the scary kind. This one cradles you like velvet, weightless, like swimming through ink that's just remembered how to breathe. And the scent. It hits you like memory's last breath, rosewater, burnt parchment, Smoke from a fire long gone out, something metallic and floral, like jasmine blooming through rust. Your feet touch down softly on a surface that doesn't quite exist. It holds you the way a dream does, firm until questioned. You're in a corridor now, narrow, endless, walls lined with doors. Each door is different, carved from different woods, etched in different alphabets. Some have knobs, some have keyholes, some are simply marked with a color or a smell. One has a doorknob shaped like a snail. One is covered entirely in feathers. One hums quietly to itself in a minor key. The librarian appears beside you. Of course he does, without a sound. "This," he says softly, "is the Hall of Dreamers." You turn in a slow circle. "These are people's dreams?" "No," he says. "These are people." You blink. "They've become their dreams," he explains. "Or their dreams became them. It's hard to tell after a while." Historians still debate the concept of the Hall of Dreamers. Some claim it was a metaphor in Sufi poetry for the soul's attempt to choose its path before birth. Others say it was an allegorical construct in Zoroastrian teachings. But a few fringe scholars argue that it was real, a hidden chamber beneath the ruins of a Persian monastery, built to honor those who had surrendered themselves completely to the dream world. The librarian gestures to the doors. "Every one of these leads to a life rebuilt by a dream." You raise a brow. "Rebuilt, like, intentionally?" He nods. "Some people don't want to wake up as they were. They'd rather carry the dream into their waking life, become someone new. The door allows that." You walk past a few of the doors. One has a name you don't recognize, written in curling script, glowing faintly. One smells like roasted chestnuts and rain on stone. One seems to breathe, very faintly, exhaling a low sigh every few seconds. You pause at a door made of pale birchwood. No handle, no hinges, only a small inscription, chiseled so delicately it seems to be part of the grain itself. "I chose the gentler story." You stare at it. The librarian watches you closely. "That's a common decision." You turn to him. "So this is the last choice?" "Not quite," he says. "This is just the fork in the path. The real choice comes after." You look down the corridor. It continues forever, or until you stop believing in it. "Can I open any of them?" you ask. "You can open one," he replies. "Do people ever choose not to?" He smiles. "Often, but rarely for long." You keep walking. Each door stirs something in you. A flicker. A reaction. That door smells like cardamom and old typewriters. That one like ice water and marigolds. One smells like the back of your grandmother's closet, the dusty lace, the ancient perfume. The librarian murmurs, "The scent knows before you do." You stop before a blue lacquered door with silver inlay. It smells like laughter you didn't mean to fall in love with. You place your palm against it. Warm, the wood pulses once beneath your hand, and then opens inward, not fast, not slow, just certain. The room inside is dim, candlelit, filled with cushions and tapestries and the soft rustle of unseen pages being turned. In the center, a figure, seated, writing. They look up, and they are you. Not precisely as you are now, but close, softer around the eyes, a little more amused by the world, wearing clothes that look like they were chosen in a dream and just happened to fit perfectly. They nod to you. "Took you long enough." You step inside. "What is this?" "It's who you could become," they reply, "if you keep the dream." You glance back at the librarian in the doorway. He says nothing. You look around the room. Everything feels right. Not perfect. Just aligned. Like the version of yourself that never quite found space in your day-to-day life had finally built a home and was patiently waiting for you to visit. You ask, "And if I stay?" The other you shrugs. Then this becomes real. Eventually, slowly, you wake up a little different. A little closer to this. You feel a strange ache behind your ribs. And if I go back? You still wake up, they say, just with the dream a little more distant, a little harder to find next time. The librarian clears his throat. No wrong choice here, he murmurs. You turn back to the other you. They smile. Whatever you choose, they say, you've already changed. You inhale deeply. The scent in the room is overwhelming now. Rose, ink, thunder, and memory. You close your eyes, and you decide. When your eyes open again, the decision has already taken root. You don't remember saying anything. There's no dramatic moment of declaration, no lightning bolt, no ritual, just a quiet knowing deep in your bones. You've chosen. The librarian doesn't speak. He only nods once, solemnly, though you catch the edge of a smile tugging at his mouth, as if he's seen this 1,000 times and still finds something sacred in it. You glance back into the room with the other you. They're already fading, not disappearing, just slipping out of the foreground like a scent on the breeze. Their figure folds into shadow, their outlines softening until they resemble a memory you've always meant to write down but never quite captured. You're not sad, not quite. It's like leaving a party where you felt strangely understood, even though no one ever asked your name. You step back into the corridor. The door closes behind you with a sound like a whispered secret. You half expect it to vanish or lock itself permanently, but instead, a gentle etching appears where your palm had touched it. Dream chosen, path begun. The corridor lights dim. The walls shimmer once and dissolve like mist burned off by morning sun. Now you're somewhere else entirely. A garden. Yes, a garden. Except the plants here aren't just plants. Each one is cultivated from a specific kind of dream. Vines that twine like hopes left unanswered, ferns shaped like questions never asked, blossoms that change color depending on the tone of your thoughts. You walk through rows of them. A tree with bark that shimmers like a cat's eye marble bends slightly towards you as if curious. A vine of silver petals uncurls lazily around your ankle but doesn't cling. Just greets. This is where we store the chosen dreams, the librarian says beside you. Every dream picked becomes a seed. You blink. Like people's choices become plants? In a way, he says. We plant the story they've chosen. Let it grow. Eventually, they return. Maybe in this life, maybe in the next. You pause under an arch of scent-laden blossoms. They smell like warm skin, thunderclouds, and possibility. Do they remember when they return? Not always, he says, but the garden does. A breeze stirs. Petals fall like quiet applause. You move deeper into the garden, and as you walk, the scent changes, fluctuating in soft waves. Oud, burnt honey, sea salt. There's something familiar here. Then you see it. A sapling, barely knee-high, growing at the center of a stone spiral. Its leaves are shaped like question marks, literally, tiny green curls, each tipped with a dot. It's your dream, the one you chose. You kneel beside it instinctively. Reach out to touch it. The leaves quiver under your fingertips, not in fear, in recognition. The librarian watches from behind you, hands behind his back. Every person who steps into the archive leaves something behind, he says. Not just a dream, a potential. This, he gestures around, is where we grow those potentials until they're ready to bloom. You look up. Bloom into what? He shrugs. That's up to you. Could be a life. Could be a story. Could be a conversation that changes someone else without you ever knowing. You sit back, cross-legged in the soft moss. There's a quiet here that doesn't exist in the waking world. It's not silence, it's presence. You're aware of everything. The wind, the slow stretch of roots beneath the soil, the distant sound of a night bird humming in reverse. You realize you're no longer carrying the vial. You pat your pockets. Gone. The librarian tilts his head. You didn't need it. Not anymore. You smile faintly. It felt important. It was, he says, until the dream chose you back. You watch the sapling. Its leaves turn slightly toward you. The scent it releases is soft and cool, like rain on marble, like dusk in a city where you once believed in magic. A question slips out before you can stop it. Will I remember all this? The librarian doesn't answer right away. Instead, he walks a slow circle around the spiral and taps his knuckle gently against a nearby stone. It echoes like a bell, low and strange. I think, he says at last, you'll remember exactly enough. Historians have long puzzled over references to the Garden of Dream Seeds found in early Persian mystical texts. While many dismiss them as metaphorical, recent fringe theories suggest that certain underground sanctuaries might have housed symbolic plantings, literal or ritualistic, where seekers performed rites of memory by planting intentions under moonlight. Whether the garden was real, imagined, or both, it remains one of the more poetic, unsolved mysteries of ancient spiritual practice. You lie back on the moss, looking up at the sky above the garden. It's not black or blue or even star-streaked. It's a slow swirl of scent and memory, color and feeling, a canvas of forgotten promises and new beginnings. You think, I could stay here, but you also think, I want to know how it ends. You close your eyes. The dream doesn't end. It just deepens. You wake up inside a memory that doesn't belong to you, but it fits. You're standing in a marketplace, Persian certainly, but a distorted version of it, as if someone tried to recall it from scent alone. The colors are slightly exaggerated, pomegranates redder than physics allows, spices casting shadows, textiles shimmering with patterns that shift when you blink. And every stall, every single one is selling dreams. Not ideas, not illusions, literal dreams. Tiny vials stoppered with wax, spools of golden thread that hum lullabies when unwound. Glass bottles that, when held to the ear, whisper other people's childhoods. Best to avoid the blue ones, murmurs the librarian suddenly beside you again. Too melancholy. And the ones with ribbons, overly dramatic, good for poetry, bad for sleep. You walk past a vendor carefully folding what looks like fog into parchment and sealing it in wax envelopes. Another sells cubes of sugar infused with remembered laughter. One stall offers dried tears labeled by emotion, joy, awe, relief, grief, but no regret. That one, the librarian says, evaporates too fast. You pause at a table where a young girl is carving slivers of sandalwood, each etched with a different symbol. She doesn't look up. She hums softly to herself as her fingers work. Her table smells like childhood sleepovers and storybooks read under covers with a flashlight. There's a scholarly debate about these dream markets. Some believe they were real events, seasonal or ceremonial, held under crescent moons in pre-Islamic Persia, where mystics, herbalists, and poets exchanged metaphysical wares in place of coin. Others argue they're purely metaphor, lifted from Sufi parables. But curiously, references to scent-coated dreams and market-like transactions appear in at least 5 unrelated folk traditions across the region. Can anyone buy a dream, you ask, brushing your fingers across a velvet pouch that hums faintly. The librarian considers, anyone can carry one, but buying, that's trickier. Why? Because most of them aren't for sale. They're waiting to be remembered. You turn to him. So why set up a market at all? He smiles. To tempt the forgetful. A sudden wind sweeps through the square. It smells like first snow, struck matches, and longing. The stalls ripple, and one by one, the vendors begin to pack up. The parchment fog seller folds his table into a suitcase. The girl with the sandalwood shavings blows out a candle and tucks her carvings into her braid. You ask, where are they going? Nowhere, the librarian says, or somewhere more useful. The dream market collapses like a well-rehearsed magic trick. In its place, silence, dust, the faintest trace of saffron on the air. And you're alone again. No librarian, no market, just you, standing in the echo of a scent. That's when you see the door. Not one of the garden's wooden doors, nor a mirrored portal like before. This one's made of woven shadows, shifting gently as if stirred by breath. There's no knob, no sign, only a keyhole. You check your pockets instinctively. Nothing. But then you remember. The dream you chose. the sapling, the scent of rain on marble. You close your eyes and imagine it, and in your palm, of course, it appears. Not a traditional key, but a coil of smoke shaped like one. Fragile, warm, gently pulsing. You press it into the keyhole. The door doesn't open. It melts, revealing a staircase, curving downward, lit by hanging lanterns shaped like open eyes. As you descend, the scents thicken, not heavier, but richer, more defined. You pass notes of firewood and frankincense, pages turned in candlelight, the sweetness of burnt sugar at the bottom of a teacup. You wonder, not for the first time, if you're dreaming, but dreams never feel this patient. At the bottom of the staircase, a chamber, round, quiet, empty, except for a single podium and a book. You walk to it. The book is bound in something soft and warm, not leather, not cloth, something in between, no title. You open it, blank, and then a word appears, your name. Not the one you were given, perhaps, but the one the dream knows you by. Below it, more words form, like ink drawn up from memory. You chose the gentler story. You walked the scented path. You remembered. As you read, more text appears, and you realize it's writing itself as you live it. Every thought you think in this moment becomes a sentence. Every breath, a line break. Your presence here is the ink. The librarian steps from the shadows, silent, reverent. This, he says, is the dream ledger. He doesn't touch the book. Only those who complete the spiral ever see it, he adds. You can't speak. You flip back a few pages. Blank. Flip forward. Blank. Only now, the present moment writes. You laugh softly. So, I'm the story now? You always were, he says. You look down at the page. The final words that appear, just before you close the cover, are not written by you, but they're meant for you. When you wake, carry the scent with you. It will know the way back. You rise from the dream ledger slowly, half afraid the act of standing will disturb the pages and erase what's just been written. But the words remain. The ink doesn't run. The letters don't blur. They settle in place as if they've always been there. Inevitable, like the arc of a story you don't realize you've already told. The librarian watches you with the quiet pride of someone who's helped 1,000 travelers find their path and still never gets tired of the moment they realize they've arrived. There's no farewell, no ceremony, just a faint nod toward a new doorway, oval, soft-edged, like the inside of a seashell. The scent coming from it is different. Familiar, your scent, whatever that means. You step through, and now you're walking through the library of scents again. But it's changed. Gone are the infinite rows of narrow drawers and marble floors. Now the space is broader, warmer. Bookshelves bloom with wildflowers. Paper birds flutter from branch to branch, binding themselves into nests made of whispered words. You pass a mirror shaped like a crescent moon. Your reflection doesn't match you precisely. It's dressed in the robes of a long-dead Persian scribe, turban askew, quill tucked behind one ear like a cigarette. He winks. You don't, but you keep walking. Your feet know the way. This part of the library isn't catalogued. It doesn't need to be. It's made of memory and metaphor and the scent of clean sheets after a long day. You come to a narrow bridge. It stretches across a pool of ink so deep you can't see the bottom. The surface ripples occasionally with what looks like script, lines of flowing calligraphy that rise, breathe, and sink again. You step onto the bridge, no railings, just soft ropes of jasmine and star anise wrapped along the edges, scenting your passage. The air here is quiet, but it isn't still. Something hums beneath your skin. The librarian's voice, now only in memory, floats to you. This is the part most forget, not because it isn't important, but because it's the most fragile, like a dream just before waking. You cross. On the far side, you find an alcove. Inside, a table laid for one. A single candle flickers, scentless, and a letter. It's sealed with a mark you recognize but can't name. When you open it, the parchment inside is blank, until it isn't. Line by line, it reveals a story. Yours. but not the version you lived. This is the story you could have had you chosen differently. A dream not taken, a scent left on the shelf, a path unwalked. It's beautiful, achingly so. In this version, you fell in love during a sandstorm. You wrote poems for someone who never asked for them but kept every one. You owned a bookstore where you only sold books that smelled like rain. You closed the letter, not from sadness, from fullness, because knowing what might have been doesn't take away from what is. If anything, it completes it, like shadow gives shape to light. There's a quiet scholarly dispute among Sufi philosophers. Is it better to live one dream deeply, or taste fragments of all possible lives? Some argue the singular path yields greater clarity. Others believe multiple echoes enrich the soul. The debate continues across centuries in footnotes and fireside conversations, unresolved and gloriously unsolvable. You rise and fold the letter. You place it in your pocket, where it dissolves into scent before it ever settles. At the end of the alcove, another doorway. This one hums. Not a sound, a vibration just under your skin, like the moment before a familiar song begins to play. You walk through, and now you're in a room made entirely of scent. Walls woven from strands of cinnamon and sandalwood, floor tiled with compressed petals, a ceiling that shimmers like myrrh-laced fog. There is no librarian now, only you and the scent. It curls around you, not invasive, not demanding. It waits. This is the moment before return. You understand instinctively. If you breathe it in, you will wake. If you don't, you'll stay. Not forever, just longer. You close your eyes. The scent gathers at your nose like a kiss. And for a moment you hesitate, not out of fear, but gratitude. You whisper, "Thank you." The scent answers, not with words, but warmth. And then, inhale. The world tilts, the scent dissolves, the story folds inward, and you begin to wake. Waking is not immediate. It arrives in slow spirals like incense smoke curling against the rim of a lantern. First comes sensation, the weight of your own body, the brush of something soft against your skin, maybe a blanket, maybe the edge of a dream still clinging to your sleeve. Then the sound, the low hum of something electronic, a faint breeze, the gentle creak of your bed as your breathing deepens. You don't open your eyes yet. There's a moment, just before consciousness fully takes hold, where everything that happened there still feels accessible. You could name the colors of the dream market awnings. You could trace the spiral path of the garden without hesitation. You still remember the smell of the ink-slick pool, the shimmer of the crescent-shaped mirror. But the details are already beginning to thin. That's what dreams do. They drift. Historians studying ancient Persian dream rituals speak of the thinning, the natural evaporation of memory upon waking, considered both a curse and a mercy. Some believed in preserving dreams through scent, locking them in herbs and oils that would jog the memory days, even years later. Others believed forgetting was essential, that remembering too much blurred the line between life and dream, which could be dangerous or divine. You shift slightly, your limbs relearning gravity. And then you realize something strange. You're holding something, not physically, not in your hand, but mentally, inside your senses, a scent, subtle, layered, just at the edge of identification. Is it the garden? The sapling? The ledger? It doesn't matter. You know what it is. It's yours. Your dream. It's traveled with you. You sit up slowly. The room feels ordinary in comparison, mundane in that cozy, beloved way. Your bed. Your window. A glass of water on the nightstand, still untouched. A pair of socks slumped over the back of a chair like two exhausted caterpillars. But the scent remains, and with it, the faintest shape of memory. You stand, padding to the window. Outside, it's just before dawn. That blue milk light that bleeds into the edges of things and makes you wonder if the sky is dreaming too. You open the window, let the air in, and it hits you. The city smells different now. No, not different, just more alive. The scents that were always there are now in focus, like the background music of a film turned up ever so slightly. Coffee brewing in a distant apartment. Morning dew clinging to garden herbs. The hint of last night's rain evaporating off sun-warmed cement. You breathe it in, and with it, the echo of the spiral garden, the market, the vials, the bridge over ink, the scent-woven walls. They're not sharp memories, they're impressions. But they're enough. Enough to remind you that your story continues here. You catch sight of yourself in the mirror, still you, hair tousled, sleep in your eyes, shirt slightly askew like you've wrestled with stars, but something's different. You look a little fuller, not physically, dimensional, like someone has drawn you more carefully, using a slightly better brush. You laugh, not loudly, just a puff of breath through your nose. And then you begin your morning. You dress, you make tea, you sit quietly as the kettle hums and the scent of crushed leaves rises to meet you. There's a quiet thrill to it now. You understand something you didn't before, that every scent carries a story, and that stories, real ones, lasting ones, don't end when you wake. They unfold. You think about the librarian. The quiet way he held the space, the thousands of drawers, each filled with a life unlived, a dream remembered, a possibility filed away under a single fragrant note. You wonder how many dreams you've filed without knowing, how many others have walked the spiral path, and if, perhaps, you'll return again someday, when the timing is right, when your scent ripens, when the dream chooses you back. Until then, you carry it, like a secret stitched into your coat lining, like a warm note in a favorite song, like the soft curl of sandalwood in a morning cup of tea. You don't need to remember everything, you just need to know it's there. Waiting, always. You walk out into the world as if for the first time. Everything is ordinary, and yet everything isn't. The mailboxes haven't moved. The bus still coughs past the corner at the usual hour. A neighbor waters their balcony plants in fuzzy slippers, splashing geraniums with the sleepy grace of someone who's never questioned gravity. You pass them, nod politely, and for just a moment, you wonder what their dream might have smelled like. You make it to the cafe without deciding to go. The place is tucked into a crooked side street that smells like sun-warmed pavement and yesterday's rain. The bells above the door jingle in a chord that reminds you of the vials, of glass and brass and something soft beneath it all. You order your usual, but when the barista hands it over, you hesitate. You lean in, breathe. There it is. Not the coffee, though that's present too, but beneath it something quieter, subtler, paper, ink, a brush of memory against your cheek. You thank them with a little more meaning than necessary and step aside. There's a window seat open. You take it. Outside, the city stretches its limbs. You sip, you watch, and from a pocket you didn't know your coat had, you pull out something weightless. Not an object, just a feeling, a lingering aroma, and then a sentence. The kind that drifts through your thoughts with no origin, no punctuation, just truth. Stories are not made of words. They're made of scent, stitched to the breath of those willing to remember. You didn't think it. You didn't hear it. You just know it. A little girl walks past with her father, holding a balloon that wobbles with each step like it's unsure of the atmosphere. She pauses, looks at you, not quite through you, but almost. You smell like bedtime, she says, then runs off. You laugh softly into your coffee. It's not the first time something odd has been said to you today. It won't be the last. You step back onto the street when you're ready, not rushed, not slow, just balanced. You walk without a destination, and everything you pass, you notice the scent, the bookstore with sun-yellowed spines and old cedar, the record shop with musty velvet and the ghost of clove cigarettes. Even the laundromat hums with memory, soap, steam, and that intimate note of warm cotton just before it cools. You realize then, you've become a librarian of your own life. Every moment has a drawer. Every drawer a scent. every scent a dream. And some dreams you'll only find later, years from now. Mid-step, mid-thought, mid-laugh, when something invisible unspools around you and draws you gently backward into a moment you didn't know you'd saved. Historians still argue whether this kind of mnemonic scent memory was unique to Persian mysticism or whether it appeared in other ancient traditions in subtler forms. Some believe it evolved into our modern instinct for nostalgia. Others argue it's still a living practice, just unnamed, passed down silently like the scent of a recipe carried on a grandmother's scarf. You pause by a florist's stall. Jasmine, orange blossom, earth. You inhale deeply. And then you keep moving. The world isn't louder now. It's clearer. You've tuned yourself like an instrument, calibrated not by frequency but fragrance. Your pace finds rhythm with your breath. Your thoughts no longer scatter like startled birds. They settle, then rise in soft formation. And somewhere inside, the spiral still turns, not as a place but a pattern, a way of noticing, of remembering. You round a corner. A street musician plays something slow, fingers dragging over nylon strings. The song smells like pipe smoke and dusk. You drop a coin into the case and nod. Beautiful, you say. He smiles. That one's for dreams. You don't ask what he means. You already know. Later, though time feels like a liquid thing now, you find yourself in a small museum you've passed a dozen times but never entered. The building is unassuming, wedged between a stationery shop and a dental office, with a faded sign that simply reads, "The Collection of Forgotten Things." Inside, the air is quiet, not silent, just respectful. It smells like camphor wood and lemon polish, old paper and linen worn thin by decades of folding. A scent so layered with time it makes your skin prickle, as if you've entered not a space but a pause in someone else's memory. The curator doesn't ask why you've come. They simply offer a nod and wave you toward the exhibits. There are no crowds, no security guards, just long wooden cases filled with objects that seem unremarkable at first. A teaspoon with a single word etched into its handle. Stay. A broken sandal made of woven reed. A glass marble, cloudy in the center, like it holds a thunderstorm. And a velvet pouch, unlabeled, but radiating a scent so familiar it nearly folds you in half. Saffron. But not just saffron, your saffron. The one that wrapped around your dreams in the spiral garden. The one that opened the first drawer. The one the librarian offered with his knowing smile and half-wink. You open the pouch carefully. There's nothing inside. Or maybe there is, but nothing visible. And then, as you close it, the scent curls around you again, and suddenly the museum is gone. You're not dizzy, not afraid, just returned to yourself, to your present, with the subtle confidence of someone who's seen what lives beneath the surface and knows it isn't gone. It's just deeper. You walk back into the light. The afternoon sun has softened, slipping into that golden hour lull where everything glows and even the pavement seems to exhale. You sit on a bench outside the museum, close your eyes, and breathe. You know now what the librarian was doing all those years, why he filed the dreams, why he listened so carefully. He wasn't preserving the past. He was tending it, like a garden, like a story told in a circle, like the slow simmer of spice in a pot you never take your eye off, not because it needs you, but because you love it. And in this moment, you understand something deeply, without words. You don't need to go back to the spiral garden, because it's never left. It's with you now, always, folded into your senses, drifting just beneath the surface of your ordinary days. Some people collect books, others collect stamps or secrets or unfinished conversations, but you collect scents, moments, the invisible architecture of memory. And tonight, when you drift off again, when your breath softens and your mind begins its quiet descent, you won't need a guide. You'll know where to go, which drawer to open, which vial to lift, which dream to breathe in. The spiral is inside you now, always turning, always waiting, and now you lie back. The lights are dim, or maybe already off. The room is cool, or warm, or somewhere in between, just how you like it. The hum of night has settled into its usual rhythm. A passing car, a distant bark, maybe the low murmur of a fan turning in slow, steady circles overhead. You sink deeper into your pillow, your limbs growing heavier with each breath. There's no urgency, nowhere to be, no task left unfinished that can't wait until morning. Just you, and the soft afterglow of a world you only half remember but somehow fully feel. You still carry the scent, not sharply, not like perfume or smoke or spice, but gently, as if your breath itself has changed shape, as if your bones remember something your brain does not, and that's enough. Tonight, the world feels less like a puzzle and more like a poem. Each moment rhymes softly with the next. Your mind drifts, but not far. It hovers like mist over a field of sleeping stories. You are no longer searching for meaning. You are the meaning. You are the librarian now, filing your memories, your hopes, your half-forgotten dreams into drawers lined with velvet and laughter and quiet courage. You are the keeper of the vials, the dream sifter, the scent walker. So go ahead, let yourself drift. Let your thoughts melt into each other like candle wax, one shape becoming another, slow and bright and inevitable. Let the spiral turn, let the saffron linger, let the dream begin again. Good night.